regular YouTube, so we'll know shortly enough. But just getting ready here. Hopefully everything is working out. There goes the little notification, so this must be good. And here we are. Yes, we are live. So here it is. So yes, you're going to get, hopefully you can hear us. That's the most important thing. Don't worry about my choppy video. I'm down here at Virginia Beach area. And then we've got Adam, who's up there in the Maryland area. So Adam, we're farther apart than we normally are on the weekends.
Yeah. You're still in Virginia though, right?
Still in Virginia, but I'm down way. I'm like 5 hours. Well, 5 hours of holiday traffic, about 3 hours of normal traffic. I'm an hour south of Richmond right now. But there we are, and we're down here. Why am I down here? Well, it's the Virginia Beach Half Marathon. It's the Rock and Roll Half Marathon down here. Year 19 for the half marathon. This will be my wife's 13th time doing it. I forget how many times I've done it, like 6 or 7. So we just did the 5K this morning. I've already been up, done the 5K, had breakfast, took an hour and 15-minute nap, and here I am. It's only 11:20, Adam. What have you accomplished today?
I got out of bed. I woke up at like 9:30, which is unusual for a Saturday.
Oh, good times here. The porn. Yes, there are porn lights here. It looks like I have a nice robust tan. You've got some funky artwork in the walls behind us. This will be a good one. This will be a good one. In any event, not to fear, we'll have the show tonight is going to be Jake producing, and he'll be on it. So that'll be ideally glitch free. And then tomorrow, Josh will be producing. Normally, I produce the Saturday shows, and I had not realized that I would be on with Adam, and Adam and I have some Wonder Twin powers when it comes to technology glitches that we decided to not chance and have someone else produce the show for us. But in any event, we've got some people trickling in here. I'm going to hit the tweet now that I know we're live, and let's talk some baseball here. We've got some intriguing matchups, and we've got some chopped up slates. So over on Yahoo, of course, they go from lock time to the rest of the slate. On DraftKings this morning, they're taking the first 5 as their early. FanDuel, wanting to be different, like only they can, are taking the first 3 as their very early only. Then they are taking the next 3, which would be the 4 o'clock and the 2 6 o'clock games. DraftKings has the 2 6 o'clock games on a turbo slate, and then everybody comes back together for the 7 o'clock game or 7 o'clock game set, which will be 9 games at the usual 7:05 time. So we'll go game by game here. And we'll see what's going on. No, I am not doing any college football. I kind of had to give college football up. I was telling Jake's doing college football behind the scenes right now. He is kindly producing for us. But what we had here is once college football went away from DFS, because, of course, those of you that remember when I was back at Roto-Grinders, I was doing the Saturday show with Justin Van Zuden, STL Cards for, I think we did that for 3 seasons together. But once it went away, I stopped watching it because my college is the University of Washington, so those games usually aren't on until 10 o'clock East Coast time, if we can even get them, because we don't have the Pac-12 network out here. So I kind of stopped college football. And then when it came back, I haven't jumped back in. But that's okay. It's out there for others. And there we are. All right, Adam, let's get into the games. We have 2 1 o'clock games. First one is 1:05. This is Homer Bailey and Domingo Germán squaring off against each other. We do have lineups for our 2 1 o'clock games. So we have accurate implied run totals, 6.5 for the Yankees going against Oakland. That's up about half from what it was last night. And then Oakland returning the favor against Domingo Germán at 4.6. Germán is the pitcher I would rather go to on this, but we also do have confirmed that it is Trevor Bauer and Dakota Hudson for game 1 here. We did not have that information last night. And then tonight it looks like it'll be Sonny Gray and Michael Wacha. Still need to confirm that. But back to our first game here. Where are you looking at Domingo Germán, both from the lens of the 3-game FanDuel slate and the 5-game DraftKings slate, considering in Trevor Bauer as well as the competitor?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of tough because he's basically the same price tag as Bauer. He's a little bit less expensive on FanDuel, a little bit more expensive on DraftKings. It's not a great matchup against Oakland. Not the most strikeouts in that lineup. They do have some pretty good hitters. Erman is good though, so I think that I would have him a little bit behind Bauer, but I do think that he's a really good pitcher. It's not a great spot, but obviously limited options.
All right. And then on the other side, I'm assuming no interest whatsoever in Homer Bailey, even as an SP2.
No, he's just priced up a little bit higher than I would want if I'm gonna roll the dice on him. It's a really, really difficult matchup against the Yankees. They have a 6.5 implied run total. Generally, I need a really cheap pitcher or a really good reason why I think that Vegas is wrong, essentially, to roster a pitcher in a spot like that, and I don't have either.
All right. Looking at the guys that I want to go to against Homer Bailey, I had written him up in the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article. I actually did 2 early slate teams because of the way things were separated. My preferred team was Houston, but that's not on the FanDuel slate. So I talked a little bit here about New York. And, of course, with Luke Voit, he is in the lineup today back from injury. I was concerned about how many lefties we would actually get going against Bailey. That was my preferred method of attack. And we have 4, but they're spread throughout the lineup. So it's Didi Gregorius, Brett Gardner, Mike Ford, and Mike Tauchman. Now, Tauchman and Ford are really cheap on FanDuel. So if you want your savings and you want to be able to get to Erman or Bauer, that would probably be the way to do it. They're a little more expensive on DraftKings, but I do like them better than Luke Voit. Tauchman outfield eligible, Ford first base eligible. And because they're batting 8th and 9th, that's a little bit of a differentiation play. Now, the guy I'd want to put him with is going to be Didi Gregorius. But even if you do a wraparound stack, you can play one of LeMahieu or Judge and sort of connect it a little better. But I was hoping Gregorius would be a little bit closer. And then Brett Gardner, even though he's next to them, you'd have to skip Luke Voit because you can't play 2 first basemen there on DK. But those would kind of be my preferred hitters. The righties, of course, are on their own merits absolutely fine. They're just a little bit expensive and not quite in as good of a matchup there. But Gleyber Torres would probably be my first choice, Judge my second, and then Gary Sanchez is actually in the lineup. The day game after a night game. Those would be the luminaries we'd be looking for. Among those guys, does anybody stand out for you, Adam, on the Yankees?
Judge, I think, is still really reasonably priced. And then I like Didi a lot. Hitting in Yankee Stadium, obviously, is a huge benefit for Didi. Most of his home runs wouldn't be home runs in other parks. So you really want him here. And he's got the platoon advantage against Bailey. So I think the Yankees overall are just really affordable.
All right. Let me see here. Getting on to the other side. Would there be anybody that interests you in going against Domingo Germán sort of as the leverage play for this morning's on either of the sides?
Seth Brown at 2,600, I think, stands out just because he's so cheap and because there are only 5 games to choose from. It's not a great spot, but Germán has allowed 2 home runs per 9 this year, so you can get to him for power. He's a left-handed bat in Yankee Stadium, so I think that he's probably the most appealing option from Oakland.
All right, I'm just going to call up a little early slate popularity here, but let's get on to our next game, a game that's been analyzed a couple times already for you. Let's keep putting it into the hopper and seeing if anything changes. Trevor Bauer going against the Cardinals. This game was rained out last night. Hopefully you guys did not play that. Reminder, we did have that set as a 40% postponement possibility in our projections. So most of us just crossed it out. That's easy to do on these the slates where there's a ton of games. And we still had both sides of Coors Field. We had Boston. We had Minnesota. Most of those teams hit pretty well last night. So it was not really missing this game. But this morning, this changes the 5-game and the 3-game slate with the addition of these 2 solid pitchers here. Bauer coming in from the trade from Cleveland, and then Dakota Hudson, rookie, who has high ground ball rate, but not a lot of strikeouts backing it up. We're paying his apex price point here on DraftKings. What do you like from this pair of pitchers?
I like Bauer. It's not the best strikeout matchup going against the Cardinals. They are basically fully healthy now. Ozuna, Molina, Wong, all difficult strikeouts. Fowler is not the highest strikeout percentage. But the whole middle of this order is right-handed, which is appealing for Bauer. Most of his issues have come with left-handed bats this season, and there's not really any good lefties in this lineup with the exception of Carpenter, who's having a down year anyway. So I think that the relative discount on Bauer compared to where he's normally priced or where his ceiling price would be makes him really a really strong option here.
All right, he is coming in as the most popular pitcher on FanDuel. That's 43%. We've got Cole Hamels at 27, Domingo Herman at 19, Hudson at 6, Davies 4, Homer Bailey 1. So kind of afterthoughts there. Really going to be between Bauer and Cole Hamels. Knowing that particular information, that Bauer's is 2-1 against Domingo Herman, does that change anything on FanDuel for you from a tournament perspective?
Yeah, I mean, 2-1's a lot. I think that it makes Herman a little bit more interesting. Like, I still think Bauer's I have Bauer projected higher, but it's by 3 points or something like that. So it's probably a spot where I would look to get a little bit more Herman if Bauer is going to be twice his own.
Okay, and then it's they're a little bit more narrow on DK, 40 for Bauer, 25 for Herman. So plus with the plus or minus 5% in there, they're a little closer than expected. So probably whomever you feel more comfortable with is the one to go to there. On the other side with Dakota Hudson, I just like the rest of the field don't see a need to go there. We know strikeouts are the currency of the realm in DFS fantasy sports, and he just does not get them. Any interest there at all for Hudson?
I just can't get to that price tag. He's a good ground ball pitcher, but just really doesn't get strikeouts against anyone. And the Reds, it's not like they're the worst lineup either. So I just really have a hard time paying that.
If you were going to go against him with some of these discounted Cincinnati players, particularly on DraftKings, where we have Tucker Barnhart at 3,100, Derek Dietrich, 33, Phillip Ervin, 33. They're the bottom third of the lineup. You got Freddie Galvis batting fifth at 39, Votto at 36, Van Meter at 39. Anybody stand out there against him, perhaps as a single or a pair to gain some extra liquidity to use elsewhere in your?
Yeah, he's been a lot worse against lefties than righties this year. He's done a really good job limiting production to righties, but a 386 expected WOBA and a 185 expected ISO to lefties. You have Josh Van Meter and Joey Votto hitting first and second in the order, both pretty decent hitters and left-handed and inexpensive. So those two stand out. Freddie Galvis is fine at shortstop. The Reds overall, even though they only have a 3.8 implied run total, if you need a cheap stack, I think that you can get there because of how cheap guys like Van Meter, Votto, Barnhart, Galvis, Dietrich are. But with the pitching options on the slate, I doubt that you really need all of that.
All right. And then on the other side, is there any of the Cardinals worthwhile against Bauer, in your opinion?
I don't think so.
All right, then let's get on to our 2:00 game. We do have the Cubs lineup still waiting on the Brewers. We have Zach Davies coming in at 5,800 on DK. That puts him in play as an SP2, but I'm going to go Framber Valdez, as is most of the crowd. On the other side, we have Cole Hamels coming in at 93. Sort of that lost price point. I like him better than Dakota Hudson. I really don't want to take him going against Milwaukee here. We'll have to see who comes out in the Milwaukee lineup. We know that Mike Moustakas is questionable. And then perpetually Ryan Braun has something along with him. And then I think Keston here is still out. Is that correct, Adam? Are you aware of that one?
I think so, yeah.
Here, let me see what his injury is. In any event here, anything on either of the pitchers, I guess Hamels potentially on FanDuel, but I think we've already talked about two we'd like more.
Yeah, it's just a tough spot. I think the $7,500 price tag on FanDuel is appealing because he's in a completely different price tier than Bauer or Domingo Herman. When you compare him to Homer Bailey at that price point, I would rather have Cole Hamels. But on DraftKings at 9,300, you're not really getting a discount there. Milwaukee's a pretty solid lineup. Keston Hiura not being in it does make it a little bit better for Hamels. They do only have a 3.8 implied run total as well. So maybe as a tournament pivot, but I just think he's a little bit more expensive than I would like, especially because we'll get to Framber Valdez at 5,500 on DraftKings. But I think that roster construction there is going to be not real conducive to getting to Hamels.
All right. Half hour ago, it was announced that Keston Hiura has been placed on the 10-day injured list. Travis Shaw has been called up from AAA San Antonio in a corresponding move, as has Ben Gamel. I haven't seen who else has been sent or released or sent down, probably just another pitcher or something. But so Shaw, they may be seeing what if those guys are here in time for the game or to make the lineup. So just keep an eye on that one. Going with the Cubbies against Zach Davies. Some people say Chris Bryant is a top 25 hitter. You've got Nick Castellanos, Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez, Kyle Schwarber. this is a nice lineup. Would this be your stack of the morning?
I mean, I prefer the Yankees, but I assume the Yankees are going to get a lot of ownership as well. I think that the Cubs are pretty interesting just because the lineup they're running out is a good one. Anthony Rizzo's back. You have Schwarber in there. Caratini gives you a decent hitting catcher option. And Zach Davies just – I don't know how he limits runs at all, but he doesn't strike out anyone. It's a team that, when they put the ball in play, they have a lot of power. So I do like the Cubs, but I would still have them behind the Yankees and behind the Astros.
All right. If you had to pick, how about rank the Cubbies, since this is the last game that's jointly on the both sites?
Yeah, Baez, Bryant, Rizzo, Castellanos, Schwarber.
All right. Do you think Javi Baez is the top 25?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'm just messing with you. All right. The 3:00 game. This one is not on FanDuel outside of the any single game action that they have, or if they've got an all-day slate. I haven't double checked on that. Fun thing that you can do over there on Yahoo is that they do have both games on the doubleheader in their contests. Each player has 2 lines, so you could play the first baseman in game 1, and then you could play an outfielder in game 2 from the same team. Something exciting. I have done that before. I have never played the same player twice. You can only do that with outfielders because of their position eligibility, but that would be kind of fun, I guess, to play an outfielder twice in the same lineup from 2 different games. So have fun over there on Yahoo. If you have not yet signed up for Yahoo, you can use the promo code OSMO coming in on our link and get up to $30 in your initial deposit bonus, or matched with your initial deposit as a bonus. That'll come in YSRPs, Yahoo Sports Rewards points. The instructions, link, and all that you need is on the 3rd paragraph of any Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article. I just dropped today's free article into the YouTube chat. Check that out and come on and join us. All right, Adam. Framber Valdez, we talked last night. I was very excited to roster him. I will not be alone. His popularity is checking in at 57% on DK. He is 5,500. I'm comfortable going up to 33% with that one. I don't really see anybody in his pricing tier that's even remotely comparable. While I do not think he will have the awesome and amazing outing that he did have in his last appearance after just crushing again in the minors, I don't see anybody remotely comparable to him. And I probably think he's, even if we took pricing out of it, he'd rank like 4th behind Hamels, Erman, and Bauer. Your choice of the order, of course, there, but he'd probably be the 4th guy based on talent. How do you feel? How strongly do you feel about Framber on DK?
I think he's clearly the top point per dollar option. The argument against him would be that he posted great strikeout numbers at AAA this year, but that's never carried over to the major leagues, or at least so far. It's possible that he made adjustments, but the argument would be he's just not a great pitcher, and he's getting close to 60% ownership. He's facing a Blue Jays lineup that does have right-handed power with Bichette, Guerrero, Grichuk, Hernandez, Drury, all in the top 6, and then Danny Jansen in at catcher as well. So, and this park has been the best park for home runs this season. So those are the risks. But the reason why I would still get a lot of Valdez is just when you compare him to other options. You have Zach Davies against the Cubs. Sure, you can make an ownership argument where it's pretty, I don't think that Valdez beats Davies 9 out of 10 times or something like that, but which is kind of what the ownership dictates. But I think that Valdez is the better projected pitcher than Davies. I think that he gives you a lot in the way of roster construction because the mid-range on this slate of pitching doesn't have a ton of opportunity cost. There's no, Max Fried type guys in there that you look at them and you're like, well, I really want to roster this guy too. So being able to pair Valdez with a Bauer or with a Domingo Germán and still afford whatever hitting you want, or most of the hitting that you want, gives you a really strong roster construction.
All right, so then on the other side, we have Clay Buchholz. This season, he has allowed 6 home runs in 30 innings. So basically, if you project him out to 200 innings, that would top the league with about 40 home runs allowed. I don't have any interest in him. Last year, his numbers weren't horrible, but this is the Astros. They're carrying a hefty Implied run total, as we would expect, it is up at 6.1, so that's up a tick from last night when I wrote up this article. But pretty much their normal stalwarts would be the guys that I like. The two guys I'm curious in if they make the lineup, and they're not in the projected lineup, so we'll have to see. But that would be Robinson Chirinos and then Aledmys Diaz. Both those guys will bat in the bottom third of the lineup, but they're discounted on DraftKings, and they also are good in righty-righty matchups. Adam, if you were going to be ranking the stalwarts, which would be Springer, Altuve, Jordan Alvarez, Bregman, Brantley, where would you land on those guys? In what order, I should say?
Yeah, so the preference actually against Buchholz, I think, is right-handed power. Okay. If you go back to the start of last season, he's allowed a 350 expected WOBA and a 200 expected ISO to righties, compared to a 296 expected WOBA and a 139 expected ISO to lefties. And normally, you just kind of expect that splits they're not going to be reversed unless there's a reason. But if you look, he has a changeup. He's thrown 27% of the time to lefties, 18.5% swinging strike percentage, really good numbers there. So he actually has a pitch that is more effective against lefties. And I think that's the reason for those numbers. Whereas that pitch isn't effective. He doesn't throw it to righties. So I think that you look to Alex Bregman, you look to Springer, Altuve as the priorities. And then obviously Brantley and Alvarez are still good enough hitters that you want to roster them. But I think that Bregman's number one for me, followed by Springer and Altuve.
All right, and that makes sense. And then anybody here, we just got the confirmed lineup for Toronto. No major surprises. I know you kind of mentioned who you were sort of worried about, but now that we see the confirmed lineup, if you were making a run against Framber for leverage, what three would you target first?
Guerrero, Grichuk, Hernandez.
Okay. That makes it easy. All right, we are on to our 4 o'clock slate. We're rejoined here by the FanDuel crowd that is getting a 3-game early slate. Their other slate is the very early slate. That is just excellent marketing. We have Steven Matz and Jason Vargas. Last night we talked about this on the Early Bird podcast. You had mentioned you felt Matz was a little bit better of a pitcher, but Vargas was confounding, as he always is. Vargas been around seemingly forever, literally pitches to about the same numbers, which are league average every single season of his career. Never seems to get completely destroyed, but when you decide to trust him, that's the game where he gives up 4 runs in 4 innings and gets knocked out early. I don't really want to play either of these guys, but they will at their price. At their price on DK in that 5-game slate, they will come into my lineups a little bit. I really don't have a lean one way or the other, Adam. We just have projected lineups here, but give a few words on this pair of southpaws.
Both not guys that I'm in love with, but they're viable, if you're playing 150 lineups. Matz has the ability to go out there and shut down lineups. He has decent strikeout stuff, but it's not great, and it's not a great park. Philadelphia is a good park for power. The Phillies lineup is a pretty difficult one. We don't have the lineup for today, but you assume that Hoskins, Realmuto, Segura, Kingery will all be in there from the right side. Harper is just a good hitter overall, despite lefty-lefty. So not the most appealing spot. He has struck out 23.1% of righties this year compared to 20.4% of lefties. He's just a little bit more expensive than I would like. And then for Vargas, I would prefer him to Homer Bailey. I'd prefer him to Dakota Hudson. But as I mentioned when we talked about Valdez, I think the best roster construction is going to be Valdez plus Bauer or Valdez plus Herman or something like that, as opposed to going to mid-range arms. Vargas doesn't have a great matchup. The Mets really don't strike out a lot. Rosario, Davis, Ramos, all pretty low strikeout guys. McNeil doesn't strike out a lot. Alonso strikes out, but he's a phenomenal hitter, so it's not like that's a plus for Vargas. So I don't love either pitcher here. They're just kind of guys that in some lineups they might fit in just because of how that particular roster construction goes, but neither one would be a priority.
All right, this one is for Kyle S. in the old YouTube chat. A little bit of a nugget here from behind the paywall. He had said that he prefers Matz over Framber Valdez. You're also getting a lot of leverage with that. 17% popularity projected here for Matz, 57 for Framber. So that's about 3.5 times on the difference there. I would not argue with you if you wanted to go that route because it's baseball.
I mean, it's not apples to apples though. Like I prefer Matz to Valdez too. He also costs $3,200 more.
Yes, and I was going to say that's where you're trying to get down there with tweaking it with the bats. But I think if we get, depending on who comes in for Houston, that's going to be where you get a cheap year too, because they still have Abraham Toro, got his first home run the other day. He's 2,600, and then the guys I mentioned, along with the projected guys in the lineup of Maldonado and Reddick, those guys are all cheap, so you can make it work. Still get a decent set of guys with that discount. So that's where the game theory and lineup construction comes into play there. And Kyle, yeah, I wasn't looking at the old last name but if I was going to do it, I would pronounce it Kyle Singine. There you go. I threw in my shot. We'll see if it's close. Let's see. That is going to be the early games. Let's go on to the 2 6:00 games, because we're going to stay here with the FanDuel crowd. I'm opening up the 2-game slate here from DraftKings. We've got Cleveland at Tampa Bay. We have Minnesota at Detroit. Tampa Bay is going to run an opener and an extended reliever. That will be Diego Castillo and Jalen Beeks. They will be facing Zach Plesac. Martin Perez is getting the start there. He gets the lottery ticket of the day going against the Detroit Tigers. Matt Boyd starting against Minnesota. As Adam will tell you in just a moment, best pitcher of this grouping and probably a top 10, top 15 pitcher on talent thus far this season. Tall order going against Minnesota, who is basically top 3 in the league, against Southpaws with Houston and Arizona. What do you want to do with these 5 pitchers for these 4 teams?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely brutal spot for Boyd. It's a 2-game slate, so obviously you're going to play him, but it's a really, really, really tough spot for Boyd. I do like getting to the Twins bats, especially assuming that Boyd gets plenty of ownership because of the lack of options. The one thing he struggles with is he gives up a very high percentage of batted balls are barreled, and the Twins have a lineup full of guys that put the ball in play and have power. So it's just a really scary spot for Boyd. I do like Martin Perez against the Tigers. The Tigers lineup is just really bad. I don't think Perez is a great pitcher, but I don't think he's terrible either. And his price tag is pretty nice.
All right, let's just mention 1 or 2 hitters from each team that sort of intrigue us. Going against Boyd, for me, it'd probably be CJ Cron or Nelson Cruz. If you want to spend up and be different on sites that require you to play a catcher, Mitch Garver, if he's leading off, is a differentiation play, because people, 1, don't like to pay that, and 2, if you do that on FanDuel, a lot of people don't like to play catchers at their catcher/first base position. But hey, Garver's going to outproduce at least a third to half of first baseman in the league anyway. We do know that Miguel Sano was removed 2 games ago. He got hit on the forearm, had a sore forearm from a pitch. I do not think he's 100%, but that he played last night. I think he was 0 for 4. That should be neither here nor there, but I did just want to call that out for anybody that has concerns on that. Then we've got on the other side here in this one, I'm thinking, yeesh. I'm going to leave that one to you. Who do you like from any of the Twins, and who do you like from the Tigers?
All the Twins, but I mean, Cruz and Cron, like you said, are the 2 that stand out the most. Sano, of course, is they're all solid plays, but Cron and Cruz would be my 2 favorites. From the Tigers, Ronnie Rodriguez, I guess. Brandon Dixon hits the ball hard sometimes.
All right. Let's see. On to our next game here. Cleveland at Tampa Bay. Plesac. Yeah, we've already talked about pitchers. Nothing exciting here. If I'm taking hitters, for me, it's Puig, it's Lindor, and it's Franmil Reyes, probably in that order. Sadly, they're not really grouped together. On the other side, I like Austin Meadows and Yi-Man Choi. What do you like from these 2 teams?
Yeah, I like the Tampa bats. I like all the bats, I guess. But yeah, Meadows stands out, I think. Ji-Man Choi, like you said. It's not a good park for hitting. It's not as good as Detroit, but it's not a bad matchup against Plesac either. Not a lot of strikeouts there. Not a great pitcher. So yeah, like Meadows, Choi, Pham.
All right, let's get on the backside here to the main slate. Let me get over to that one. Starting off, Adam, we got a couple, I don't want to say a couple of pitchers, because there's really only one. Pablo Lopez is not the one. He has 7,200 going against Washington. On the other side, we have Steven Strasburg in an excellent matchup against Miami, 11,200. It's going to be in the 80s with 60% humidity there in the nation's capital. A lot of your salary cap going to Strasburg here. What are the merits of that? We do have Coors Field on this game. On this slate. We do have a few other gas cans as well. So there are going to be some hitting environments and pitchers we want to target against. Boston will be in the mix once more. What do you like here with Strasburg in the context of the whole slate?
Yes, I mean, I obviously love the spot for Strasburg, and I'm going to be happy with whatever Strasburg I'm able to get to. But in the context of the entire slate, you do have a game in Coors Field. You do have some other really good hitter spots with, Boston facing the Angels, for example. So I don't know how easy it'll be to get to this top tier of pitching, especially because if you look at the bottom tier, you don't have that 4K guy to pair him with. Jorge Lopez is the cheapest starter at 5K. He's not fully stretched out. You get Michael Wacha at 5,700. That's not really minimum price. You're paying 17K at pitcher at that point. So I'm not sure how easy it'll be to get there, but I'll be happy getting whatever Strasburg I can because it is a good matchup against the Marlins. They do have plenty of strikeouts, plenty of right-handed hitters in this lineup. Only a 3.1 implied run total. So everything looks good for Strasburg. It's just a matter of can you fit him in lineups.
Yeah, and that is nothing else to add on that. I just don't think it's really worth taking anybody as a leverage against Strasburg in this one. But on the other side here, going against Lopez, we've got some intriguing matchups here. Anthony Rendon once again saved the Nationals bullpen with a walk-off home run last night. Nationals bullpen is putrid at best. But Soto, Rendon, somehow Asdrubal Cabrera has come over and does nothing but get RBIs whenever he's in the lineup with the Nationals. It's almost weird at this point. And then you got a lefty-righty matchup with Matt Adams. Are you looking to mix in any of the Nationals as a counter move to Boston and Coors Field hitters?
I'm always interested in the Nats in tournaments if they're going to be low owned. I would say they're probably the team that I'm over the field on like most frequently because they're always expensive and they're normally not the best values. So that drives down their ownership, but they have a ton of power in this lineup. They have a lot of really good hitters. It's a deep lineup, so it's really easy to make contrarian forms of their stack. So, I think that it's not a great spot against Lopez, but it is a negative park shift for Lopez. It is an atrocious Miami bullpen behind them. So the Nats do have a lot of upside here.
All right. Hitting our next game. We got 9 on this slate. Reminder, we do have that doubleheader. We'll get to that in just a second here with the Reds and Cardinals. But again, shout out to our pals over there at Yahoo. They're the presenting sponsor of quite a few of our shows. One of the things I do want to mention is they have a $1 million baller for Week 1 NFL. That is a $1 million contest, $100,000 to first. Here's the 2 fun parts. No management fee. That's it. $1 million in, $1 million out. If they don't bring in $1 million, they're still paying out $1 million. It's a guaranteed contest, and it's a 10-entry max. So, yes, it is $25 per entry, but you can get in there for $250. My guess is, I would think, I wouldn't be shocked if it got above 95% full. I don't think it's going to get completely full just because so many of the other sites do their big blowouts here. And the fact that it's only 10 entry max, that's going to take a lot of gamers to fill that one up. But definitely take a look at that. We do have NFL projections for Yahoo. We will have a Yahoo-centric article that will actually be in front of the paywall, written by yours truly for the Sunday slate. We had some good success there last year. Fingers crossed we can do it again, but definitely worth checking out there. They have late swap, slightly unique pricing, though in line a little bit more with what everybody's used to, unlike NBA and MLB. But it is a lot of fun. Half-point PPR. Otherwise, everything else there is the same. All right, Adam, let's look at our second game here. We're on to the 7:15 games. It is your Baltimore Orioles and Dylan Bundy going against the other Lopez, Jorge Lopez, here for the Royals. Jorge Lopez was is not fully stretched out. So that does have me with a little bit of interest in the Orioles. On the other side here, going against Dylan Bundy, I think Soler, Dozier would be the two I'd look to, maybe Ryan O'Hearn. Why would I look to those guys? Well, because Dylan Bundy has allowed the most home runs in the league over the last 2 seasons. Talk to me here. Let's start off with the potential of actually playing Dylan Bundy.
Yeah, I'm really interested in Bundy here because I think the price tag's just really affordable for the upside that he gives you, and it'll let you fit good bats into your lineup. This season he has a 28.7% strikeout percentage against right-handed hitters. The Royals have 4 above average hitters in their lineup. 3 of them are right-handed with Merrifield, Soler, and Dozier. Soler and Dozier both are high strikeout guys, so Bundy hopefully can take advantage of that. There's also legitimate risk there because he gives up most of his home runs to righties. So I think that Dozier and Soler also are really strong plays, but the upside at least is there for Bundy. And then you get to the bottom of this order where there's probably going to be 4 lefties, but O'Hearn, Villoria, and Phillips are all high strikeout guys, especially Villoria and Phillips. Nicky Lopez is a below average hitter. Bubba Starling is right-handed and strikes out a ton. So I just think it's a spot where Bundy's ceiling, like if you were pricing Bundy for his ceiling, you could make the argument that he should be like 8,500 to 9K here. The median price range is probably closer to where he is, but I think that he gives you a lot of upside in your lineups.
All right. Getting back to my screen here on this is, I don't know. This feels almost like a lost game, Adam. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other, but we just have 9 here, so I hate to totally cross it off. But
the Baltimore game?
Yeah, I don't have help me out here. I feel that I should be looking at it more. I even wrote up Baltimore as target to go against Lopez. So Lopez over his last 344 lefty-righty matchups has allowed a 370 WOBA, 212 ISO, nearly a 10% walk rate. I'm looking at the switch hitters here with damn it, I can't say it when I'm on air with you. Santander. Is that close?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Jonathan Villar. There's
that's
a DR. Stephen Wilkerson. That's probably wrong. And then who else do you think is going to be in there? Is it going to be Ruiz? Is it going to be DJ Stewart as the lefties? Or will those guys crack the lineup? Because I like those guys as discounts.
I think DJ Stewart is definitely going to be in the lineup. Okay. Ruiz probably, Chris Davis possibly, Cisco probably.
All right. And the reason I say that with those guys is some of them are cheap. So I don't know that I really want them as – I'm not as fired up as with a complete Baltimore stack, but using those guys with some of the Colorado guys helps you average stuff down. And that makes it a little more interesting to me. So I guess the pieces of this game feel useful. I just going all in on either side here doesn't as much to me, which is surprising because normally I like to go against Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with that. Like the Orioles have a lot of upside for such a bad team, but they still aren't a team that I get to a lot. But when you go like individually through the lineup, VR is a good play. He offers power. He offers stolen bases. Santander has power. DJ Stewart's cheap and a decent hitter. Mancini and Alberto Alberto's not a great power hitter, but he's a good overall hitter. Mancini's an above average hitter. So and you're getting, a not very good pitcher in Lopez. You're getting a not very good bullpen behind him. So there's certainly upside for the Orioles. It's just that I think it's probably more appealing to be mixing these guys into other stacks, like you said, than expecting the Orioles to break the slate like they did last night. And then on the other side, I don't love full Kansas City stacks, but I do think that Soler, Dozier, and Merrifield are all excellent plays because Bundy does give up power to righties. Chance Cisco can't throw out runners to save his life, so Whit Merrifield should be stealing any chance he gets. So there's a lot of upside in this game, despite it being 2 teams that are absolutely terrible at baseball.
All right. Jeez. Sorry, I'm trying to help someone here with a question in support, and I don't have access, and I'm on air, but I feel bad, so let me just give them somebody to reach out to, but there's nothing I can do. All right. Over here, we are on to the second game of the doubleheader. I hope you are have quenched that thirst, Adam, because explain to everybody why you are about to be doing some burnouts as you leave school on the last day and head into summer vacation here with Sonny Gray.
Yeah, I have a friend named Justin who likes to make really bad bets, and he bet me before the season started that Sonny Gray wouldn't be 10K, and Sonny Gray is 10.8 on a 9-game slate, so I finally won that bet. Thanks, Justin.
There we are. So just so everybody knows, that was one. It was a before the season bet, so that's pretty cool. I hadn't realized that. And second, Sonny Gray's already been over 10,000 twice. They just have not been on 8-game or more slates. So here we go. Well-deserved victory lap, Adam. Talk about Sonny Gray in context of this entire slate. He is the third most expensive pitcher here on DraftKings. He is 10,800. He's behind Strasburg by 400. He's behind Kershaw by 900. We'll get to Kershaw towards the end there. But the floor is yours with Sonny Gray. Take a nice leisurely dance here.
I think it's pretty tough to actually get to him today. I obviously think that he's really, really good. He has a 29% strikeout percentage this year, 3.65 xFIP, has a 52% ground ball percentage. All that stuff's really good, but the Cardinals don't strike out a ton. And when you compare Gray to Strasburg against the Marlins, I think it's really tough. And then also keeping in mind what we talked about with Strasburg, where I don't even know how easy it's going to be to get to this top pricing tier. If Gray ends up being much lower owned than Strasburg, and I can get up to the expensive pitchers, then, I think you can make an argument for it. Right now, we don't have Gray in our ownership projections. We have Strasburg at 44%. But it's just tough when you have Strasburg and you have Clayton Kershaw at the top. If I get to that tier, it's still going to be hard for me to get to Sonny Gray just because of who's around him and because of the matchup that Strasburg has.
All right. There we go. Sorry. I believe firmly in customer support, trying to help out there. Yeah, this one not enthralled on either side. We do have a $5,700 Michael Wacha. Coors is on the slate. You're going to talk here about Joe Musgrove in a moment, but let's talk about Wacha as one of our potential discount dandies. He is also one of those gas cans that is trying to avoid a match. 5,700 there for Wacha as your SP2. You're not going to feel good about it, but how terrified do you feel on a scale of 1 to screaming with your hair on fire down a roller coaster?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a pitcher that I'd like to roster, but it's kind of the best of the options, I guess. The Reds only have a 4.1 implied run total. There's some chance that we get a watered-down lineup on the second game of a doubleheader. Joey Votto's been banged up recently. Maybe he doesn't play the second game. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. But yeah, it's just a cheap pitcher that hopefully can go out there and not suck too much.
All right. I'm going to call up the other sites here and we'll talk about some pitching pricing throughout that. But Wacha is not going to be one of the guys we're going to spend a lot of time on. If you're going against him, I'm assuming it's the lefties.
Yeah. Well, no, it's everybody.
It's everybody. Okay.
This season, he's allowed a 370 expected WOBA and a 199 expected ISO to righties, 337, 214 to lefties. So, yeah, it's everybody. Obviously, again, the lineup could be kind of weird, but Suarez is very, very affordable. I really like him here. Aquino, of course, has tons of power. You're paying for it, but he's still a good play. And then the same guys we talked about from earlier are still inexpensive with Van Meter, Votto, Galvis.
All right. I just wanted to look at some of the so let's go over here to FanDuel. Give you guys a few sneak peeks here at the popularity. For pitching, Strasburg, this is FanDuel, 32. Keuchel, who we haven't talked about, 23. And then a whole host of players around 7 to 10. That would be Bundy, Lucchesi, Webb, Ray. We'll talk about those next three. Complete afterthought on everybody else. Literally on DraftKings, just for frame of reference. Let me use our handy dandy filters here. We've got Strasburg coming in number 1 at 44, Dylan Bundy at 30. So I'm going to I said I wasn't excited about that game. I'm going to think again about Bundy here. Robbie Ray, 22, Keuchel, 20, Logan Webb at 17. The Lopez is coming in at 14, Lucchesi at 13. So again, Wacha, bit of an afterthought there. Oh, because
Wacha's not in the.
It's a doubleheader. That's why it's mucking that one up. Okay. As soon as the first games are over, those guys will be back in there. But again, I would say that Waka really is not going to crest over double digits on DK would be my thought. Just seeing where everybody else comes in.
I bet he does.
Okay. So we can see plenty of time.
Not by a ton. Like my guess is that he's like, I don't know, 13, 14%.
Okay. That's fair. We're both kind of on the Bloodhound trail with that one. And then checking out here on Yahoo, 62% Strasburg, Keuchel at 40, Webb and Ray in the mid-20s, Lucchesi, Bundy, Ronaldo, Lopez, got triple Lopez day today. Kershaw are in the mid single digits, but just wanted to put that out there for perspective. Reminder, you can get that behind the paywall. Promo code DFS strategy, live before lock, or early bird, all one word with any of those phrases, get you 50% off of any 1 month package. That does include the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. You can also use, if you need one more, use MLB Stacks, and that'll get you in there as well. All right, Adam, back to the games at hand. Anything else from game 2 here that you wanted to call out before we roll through the rest of the slate?
No, I don't think so.
The Sox, that would be the Black Sox. The Bravos, that would be Atlanta. Ronaldo, Lopez on your triple Lopez header day going against Atlanta. Difficult matchup, $7,600 there for Lopez. Scary is what it comes down to. He is in the top 7 for most home runs allowed since the beginning of last season. He does have strikeouts. However, Atlanta does not always have them to offer the opposing pitchers, but we do have some prominent guys, or Matt Joyce is now playing a prominent role as an everyday player in their lineup. We've got Tyler Flowers. You've got a few guys that have some strikeouts in there. It's still not making Lopez exciting. Keuchel on the other side, we talked a little bit about this on the early bird. He's had a few nice strikeout games. That's generally not in his repertoire. They're available to him, but they come and go. There is no consistency. It all depends on what happens when and I hate to say this, it all depends what happens on strike 3. Well, with him, it kind of does. Okay. Is it a hit that turns into a ground out or a fly ball? Perhaps. Or is it end up being in strike 3 and then he gets a strikeout? So he has so many ground balls. It's kind of a mess there to count on anything, but he does look much better over his last few starts. This is an intriguing matchup for him. And I don't mind him just from a run prevention standpoint, but he's definitely a tier below the Strasburgs, the even Sonny Gray, the Kershaw, but his price is also below them. Adam, does that get him in some of your evening plans tonight on these top heavy tournaments?
Definitely not if he's going to be 20% owned like we have projected right now. If that comes down, then it becomes kind of interesting. Like if you can get him low owned because he's so expensive, then it's like, okay, maybe I get that 8 inning 8 strikeout game out of him, and that's good. But when we talked about Bundy, we kind of talked about how he's priced where his median, he's priced to his median projection, but there's a ton of room for him to exceed that. It's the opposite with Dallas Keuchel. He's priced to where he has to have a very good game, like a top 25% outcome game for you to be happy you rostered him at $9,600. And more often than not, he's going to kind of disappoint at that price tag, or at least be someone where if you don't have him in your lineup, you're not upset about it. So if on players like that, when their ownership is high, I tend to be underweight. If the field is generally saying, I can't pay that price tag, then that's when it becomes kind of appealing to get more of him, just because it's still in that range of outcomes for him to have a good start here against a not very good White Sox team. But if the field's going to go there, I just don't want to pay that salary.
All right. Any interest at all in Lopez as an SP2?
Not really. It's a tough matchup with Atlanta. They have a pretty balanced lineup, probably going to have 4 lefties, 4 righties, and then the pitcher. Lopez this season struck out about 22% of righties, 18% of lefties. He gives up power, though, and the Braves do have power in this lineup. It's still not a great strikeout matchup. You do have Dansby Swanson back, so the lineup's a bit better than it had been.
Cool. I didn't see that. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, he came back, I think, last night. So, yeah, I mean, it's an okay price tag on Lopez. There's certainly a ceiling there, but I would put him behind Bundy. I would put him behind Logan Webb, and similar to Brock Burke.
All right. Only guy kind of popping out just a tiny bit for me is Matt Joyce over there on Yahoo at 10, because he will be in the heart of the order if he makes the lineup probably batting fifth. So that would be one I'd keep my eye on there. Otherwise, probably go all or nothing with Atlanta as a stack if I ended up there, which, wait for it, I probably will with the old mass multi-entry and Atlanta carrying a 5.7 implied run total here. Throwing out the weather, it's going to be in the upper 80s, 40% humidity. Rare, looks like there's no precipitation. What? We're not going to talk about pop-up storms in Atlanta. It must also almost be fall down there in the south. We're not in the south for this one. It's not going to be cold, Adam. It's going to be Texas. It's going to be in the mid to upper 80s. We have the Seattle Mariners taking on the Rangers and Brock Burke. Burke is a lefty. He is 7,200. I point out that he is a lefty because the Mariners have a bunch of lefties that they are forced to play at this point with the way they with how bare the cupboard is. I think I skipped it. I skipped two games. Let's just talk about this one and then I'll round back to the 8 o'clock ones or the 8:10 ones. You've got Tommy Malone, who's going to be the bulk guy. Matt Whistler will go likely literally one inning. He'll probably go 18 or so pitches, but he doesn't ever pitch more than one inning. Malone is capable of going up to 100, but he is coming in, as you mentioned, or as you talked about last night, as a secondary guy, which sometimes tends to cap these guys. Thoughts about this trio of pitchers here with Malone, Burke, and Whistler?
I think Malone and Burke are both kind of interesting. I would put them behind Bundy. I would put them behind Logan Webb. But, this park is tough. It looks like it's only supposed to be about 85 degrees instead of the normal 95 to 100. So that's nice. We have relatively low implied run totals for this park. 5.5 for Texas, 4.6 for the Mariners. Brock Burke, most of his time this year was at Double-A, struck out about 26% of hitters. Steamer projects him for a little over 7 strikeouts per 9. He just projects as a pretty mediocre pitcher, but most of the hitters in the Seattle lineup are left-handed, which is good for Burke, and there are strikeouts in this lineup. So I think he's a viable tournament option as long as he's not getting much ownership. And then on the other side with Malone, the issue is that when he doesn't start, you're normally going to get around 80 pitches out of him, and that just kind of caps the ceiling. Where, like, you compare him to someone like Dylan Bundy at the same price point, and if Bundy's pitching well, you can expect to get around 100 pitches. You can expect to get those extra 20 pitches that give him a chance to pick up a couple of more strikeouts. So that's why it gets kind of tough. But that being said, it is a good matchup against Texas. Huge park downgrade, but Texas has plenty of strikeouts in their lineup, not many good hitters. So just some tournament interest in these guys if their ownership isn't going to be too high.
All right, I see why I was confused. Somehow DraftKings has this start listed as 8:35, and I wanted to click on there and see who they had as the probable opener. It's an 8:05 start. They buy literally every other side out there. So the game is going to play. It's not going to be an issue. Just that was a random inconsistency there. With all the lefties here and so many lefties in the lineup, is there anybody you really want to play from either side? I mean, the Mariners make it pretty easy for us because we know that Austin Nola, Aaron's older brother, and Tom Murphy are both solid in righty-lefty matchups. J.P. Crawford can hold his own. He has been actually pretty good against lefties. On the other side, for me, it's really only Danny Santana, the switch hitter, but you're paying apex prices for him, and Elvis Andrus. Otherwise, it's a pedestrian as hell lineup for Texas. Are there any hitters of note here for you?
You mentioned Nola and Murphy. I think they're both perfectly fine. I think Nick Solak is a strong value play from Texas, probably hitting 4th or 5th, still reasonably priced. But I don't love either offense.
All right. Well, let's get to a place where you might love one, if not both of the offenses. Yes, it is the Coors Field extravaganza. We're looking at a 14 implied run total that ticked up a little bit last night. Oh, it's still 13.5 on some sites. So depending where you're looking, but it's a 6.5 implied run total there for the Pirates and a 7 to a 7.5, depending on the site you're looking at there for the Rockies. We had mentioned, you had mentioned potentially considering Joe Musgrove as a play here. Staring down that implied run total, do you want to talk through that one more time to a larger audience here?
Yeah, so it's not that I think Musgrove is a good play or a high play that's likely to work out or that he projects well, but on this slate, you don't have a ton of cheap options that are really appealing. You have Michael Wacha, who's not appealing. You have not a whole lot else. Jorge Lopez. With Musgrove, he's most likely going to fail here. He's pitching in Coors. You obviously don't want to take pitchers there, but he's 6,600. He's just a better pitcher in terms of talent than the pitchers around him. And you're obviously going to have, or I would assume you're going to have some lineups that aren't Rocky stacks. The easiest way for a lineup that isn't a Rocky stack to win a tournament is for the very, very, very popular Rockies to not do well. The easiest way for the very popular Rockies to not do well is for Joe Musgrove to have a good start. So it kind of just gives you like a path of least resistance in non-Rocky stacks. I'm not saying that you like have to have Musgrove if you don't stack the Rockies, but there is at least a logical way to get to rostering some Joe Musgrove in large field tournaments.
All right, and I think that's perfectly fine and valid, and I don't even want to caution against it. I mean, you've laid out the case. Musgrove is up or down anyway, and this is it's one of the ways of getting there. On the other side, we have Tim Melville. Is he going to be your white whale today?
Hey, I get that one.
Only because it's not a movie. You had to read Moby Dick at some point, or at least the clip.
Definitely did not, but
cliff notes.
Yeah, I might have read the back of the book or something. No, I'm not getting there. The Pirates are a more difficult matchup than the Rockies are. The Rockies at least have some strikeouts in their lineup. The Pirates don't. They're an above average offense that barely ever strikes out, hitting in Coors. So if I had to take a pitcher from this game, it's Musgrove.
All right. Hitters. The world is your oyster. Let me see. I did a few notes on this one. So the Melville was kind of interesting. He had been around, bounced around a little bit, and he's slotting in for John Gray. But this is not a good spot for him. I think he can go with guys from either side of the plate. Going against Musgrove, it's not necessarily the home runs that are going to do him in, but it is the spacious ballpark and the hard hits that for him, because he does a decent job of limiting home run power, doesn't mean he's going to limit gaps to the double or mid-range stuff that goes between the outfielder and the infielder, which are rather farther apart at this park as opposed to some of the others here. So I kind of like anybody in this game that at least has gap power. Do you have a line of demarcation at all for your hitters in this game?
I love the Pirates in general. The Coors is a great park for power, but the real reason it's such a good hitter's park is, like you said, that there's just so much outfield because the walls are deeper than other parks to try and mitigate the altitude. So there's just more range for outfielders to cover, and batted balls, you're going to have a higher batting average on balls in play in Coors than anywhere else. So when you get a team like the Pirates that does have some power, but also just has a ton of guys that don't strike out and they do put the ball in play, and they have speed as well with guys like Newman and Starling Marte, it just sets up really, really well, like for them in Coors, because they're going to hit the ball, and that's really all you have to do in this park to get guys on base and to score runs. So I love the Pirates here. I think that they're expensive enough where people won't go there as much as they'll go to the Rockies. If you look at the Rockies pricing compared to the Pirates pricing, they're just clearly the better values. So I think that in cash games, the Rockies are the guys that you want, but in tournaments, you're just going to get lower ownership on the Pirates than the Rockies. I'd be very surprised if that's not the case.
Yeah, it's that Coors Field's one of the stadiums I've been to, and I've been to it a couple different times, being out in Denver for business and classes and stuff. I've been there in the early spring, early summer, and then late fall, before DFS, and then after DFS started. I actually watched the game out there with one CSU Ram, Peter Jennings. So that was it was a lot of fun. It is a beautiful park, and it is huge, like by comparison. And a lot of the West Coast parks are. I've been to a few of those in, Safeco Field. Living in Seattle was the one that I attended or went to most of my games in. But this park is it's mammoth, which is wild when you consider the amount of home runs and everything else that occurs there. It sort of messes with you a little bit. We're like, how the hell can they hit these out of the park? And then they're just like barely swinging and the ball's flying out of the park. So rather interesting there. Enough little side notes. Anything else from this game, Adam?
No, I think that's it. Just get to the batters, consider some Musgrove.
All right, we've got, 3 more here? Let me make sure I didn't skip anybody else. All right, LA, Arizona, 8:10 start here. This one is in Chase Field. Roof's going to be closed through this homestand because it is hot, hot, hot out there in Arizona. We've got Clayton Kershaw, who has been outstanding recently. Slightly difficult matchup for him to get his best start. Arizona's been a top 3 team in most metrics. They generally are the 3rd team, but they are 2nd in a couple categories against lefties, right there with Houston and Minnesota, which surprises me considering that AJ Pollock no longer with them. He's actually a Dodger now. And then Goldschmidt no longer with them, but they've just been getting it done on the whole. That said, I don't really want to take anybody from the Arizona side. I could see a one-off Christian Walker or Wilmer Flores, but just don't really see the need to go there. Talk about Kershaw in line with Strasburg and with the Keuchel and Sonny Gray.
Yes, I mean, I think Kershaw's great. He was already having a really good season, and his sliders improved over the last couple of months, which is why you've seen the strikeouts come back, and he's just racking up a ton of Ks now. But it's tough. It's a tough matchup. Arizona's active roster against left-handed pitching has the 3rd lowest strikeout percentage in baseball. Only the Athletics and Astros are lower. They have a 124 WRC plus, so they're really productive. They have a lot of righties that are good hitters that don't strike out. I still think Kershaw is likely to have a good game. It's just a lower probability of reaching his ceiling. And then you get to the issues that we brought up with Strasburg and with Gray about it being tough to, or potentially being tough to even get to that price range. So I would put Kershaw behind Strasburg if I can get up there. A lot would depend on ownership between him and Gray because I don't think the spot is great for either one. I think Kershaw is a better pitcher than Gray. I think that Gray's matchup is a little bit more appealing and his price tag is a little bit more appealing. So it would really come down to ownership, but Strasburg would be still ahead of Kershaw for me.
All right. And then on the other side, we have Ray. Tough matchup for Ray, but he does warrant tournament consideration. You mentioned it, or I mentioned it last night on the Early Bird podcast. This will be the 5th time he's going against the Dodgers, but he has 34 strikeouts in those 24 and a third innings. That is just demonstrating the upside. Will that happen tonight? We don't know. It's the Dodgers. They're a really, really good team, but it just shows that he does have the stuff that can be effective. We're paying a reasonable price, or it's not quite paying a premium for him, but there's not much wiggle room left in his price tag there on DraftKings. I don't see a need to go to Ray on the other sides unless it's a shorter slate or something of that nature. Thoughts on Ray against the Dodgers as a contrarian option here?
I like Ray a lot here. It's not a great spot, obviously. The Dodgers have a lot of good hitters. They have a lot of guys that are difficult to strike out. But I think Ray's salary factors that in. You compare him, like the matchup for Dallas Keuchel against the White Sox is obviously more favorable than Ray's against the Dodgers. But for the season, Robbie Ray has struck out 31% of hitters. That's actually the highest strikeout percentage on this entire slate, whereas Dallas Keuchel has struck out 20.2%. Ray has a 4.01 Sierra. Keuchel's at 4.22. So in terms of run prevention, they're comparable, but you're just getting way more strikeouts from Robbie Ray. The walks are an issue at 10.8%. But I think that all the negatives are just factored into the Robbie Ray salary, whereas there's a lot of room for him to exceed it. So I expect Ray to be one of my higher owned pitchers.
All right. Anything you want to mention in passing for the hitters in this game?
If Ray gets a lot of ownership, then the Dodgers become an interesting leverage deck just because they're so good.
So Pollock, probably Turner, who's a little dinged up.
Yeah, Turner may or may not be suspended at any point.
Oh, is that what happened with that?
He bumped an umpire.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I don't remember any bench clearing brawls or charging the mound. Okay, bumped it. All right, well, whatever. Pollock, Chris Taylor, Kiki. Yeah, they've got some decent. Wait, is Jed Jericho really with the Dodgers? How
yeah.
I missed that. Oh, my.
Yeah, their active roster this year actually only has a 97 WRC plus against left-handed pitching.
It's very selective guys that you want.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I don't think supposed to be in the lineup either. So
yeah, Muncy shouldn't be in there, and he's good lefty. Bellinger, of course, but you're paying top dollar. So Interesting one. All right, well, definitely an 8 o'clock slate there, but we shall see. gamers. We shall see. 2 to go, our 2 9 o'clock slates. We're going to talk about pitching in the first one, offense in the second one. First one here, we've got Joey Lucchesi going on into San Francisco, taking on Logan Webb. Hey, another ballpark I've been to there in San Francisco. You've got Lucchesi 9,100, Webb 7,900 here on DraftKings. Over on Yahoo, you've got a more intriguing price point there for Lucchesi, who is at 38, and then you have Webb at 31. So I really like those guys there. It allows you to do a lot with the 3 key offensive teams, the 2 in Coors Field, and then we'll talk about Boston in a moment. What do you want to do with this pair of hurlers?
The salary for Lucchesi on Yahoo and on FanDuel is really, really appealing. He's better play from a run prevention standpoint than a strikeout standpoint. He's a decent strikeout pitcher. He has a 23% strikeout percentage this year. But the Giants don't strike out a ton, but they're also not a good offense, and this game's in San Francisco. So where you on sites where you can get Lucchesi at a cheap price tag, it's really appealing because you don't need a ton of strikeouts to pay that off, and he still is capable of getting them. Whereas on DraftKings, I think he's a viable pivot to Dallas Keuchel. Right now we have Keuchel at 20% ownership. We have Lucchesi at 13%. I think that he's a viable pivot because he is a better strikeout pitcher than Keuchel. He's in a better park for pitchers than Keuchel, and he's a little bit lower owned, but the price tag's just a little bit more than I want to pay for ceiling wise.
All right. And then Logan Webb, you had some interesting thoughts on him. He's someone that I am not nearly as familiar with, but wait for it. He is pitching in San Francisco, so that always puts anybody squarely in the mix, considering some of the San Francisco pitchers we have played in their home park. 7,900. He is going against a difficult lineup, especially with the power they possess, but that should be somewhat muted here in San Francisco. And just a 4.0 implied run total for the Padres. It is going to be in the low 70s at first pitch here. 6 o'clock local starts. Logan Webb, SP2 question mark.
Yeah, I like Webb here. The Padres don't have as many strikeouts in their lineup as they have for most of the season, since they don't have Reyes and Tatis is on the injured list. But you're also losing a lot of good hitters. You know, Greg Garcia is not great. Margot, Urias, Hedges, all not the best hitters, you know, toward the bottom of the lineup, and then you get the pitcher. So I think that it's a good run prevention spot. I think that his salary is affordable. He threw 93 pitches in his first start with San Francisco, so we know that he can get up there in pitches. He threw 67 in his last outing, but he gave up 4 runs in 4 2/3. It just wasn't a good start for him. Most of his time this year has been at Double-A. He struck out about 26.5% of hitters. Steamer projects 7.6 strikeouts per 9. He also at Double-A had a 65.5% ground ball percentage, which is just incredibly high. So you're kind of you can kind of think of it like, would you rather roster a $9,600 Dallas Keuchel in Atlanta against the White Sox, or would you rather roster a $7,900 Dallas Keuchel in San Francisco against the Padres? And to me, it's the $7,900 one.
Okay. Were you inspired? Did that come to you in a dream last night as a comparison? Because I like that comparison.
Just top of my head right now.
Excellent. We'll file that one away. Pull that one out about once a month and dazzle the onlookers with your brilliance there. That is a good one. See, now I'm excited to consider Logan Webb. All right, final game of, well, let me see. Any hitting in this game? I don't see any myself outside of the late slate.
Yeah, not really. Just a tough spot. Like Machado's still really cheap for whatever reason.
Is he still 11 on Yahoo? Let me get over to Yahoo because I did play him there last night. Yep, Machado's still 11 on Yahoo, so he is definitely in play there. Let's see. Last game of the night, I was trying to find out who the pitchers are going to be. It's going to be Dylan Peters, and then it's going to be Brian Johnson, the lefty. There should be an opener for him. Last night, we had people guessing that it was going to be Andrew Kashner. Now it's DK is at least calling out Ryan Brazier. It's going to be someone that will probably go an inning. If it's Kashner, he might go 2. Adam had a good point last night. Don't laugh at Andrew Cashner, because Andrew Cashner is a reliever, probably much better than Andrew Cashner as a starter, because he can throw harder and not have to worry about making it through a bunch of innings. Dylan Peters on the other side, yeah, no thank you. Boston, let's see, last night when I wrote this, they had a 5.4 implied run total. It's holding at 5.4. Let's see, it's going to be back-to-back mediocre lefties there, so this is coming from Friday's analysis. We have Dylan Peters this season has allowed, over his career, 381 hitters. They might just be this season. He's got a 380 WOBA, 250 ISO, nearly a 2 home run per 9. So we like Mookie, we like JD, we like Xander. If in the lineup, Christian Vasquez for savings. Sam Travis is always in the mix, as he has light tower power, but he probably will be pinch hit for as soon as a righty comes into the game. If they start out with a righty, they may still put Travis in the lineup if he's deep enough. Oh, pardon me, that's the other team that's starting with an opener. Sorry, I keep forgetting, because the Anaheim starts with an opener 2 or 3 days a week. So Travis should be in the lineup. Those would be the guys I would look to here. Red Sox come in as my second stack behind Pittsburgh tonight.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for the Red Sox. A good spot for the Angels, too. I would say that I have the Red Sox. Yeah, they're one of my favorite stacks, too, behind Coors. So, yeah, it's a pitcher in Peters that isn't really anything special. 345 expected WOBA, 209 expected ISO to righties so far this season. Betts, Bogarts, Martinez, Travis, Vasquez even. All quality right-handed bats. Devers hits everyone. So, yeah, I'm with you on the Red Sox.
All right. Let's loop to the other sets real quick. Just talk about pitching with their perspectives. Again, at 8 or 6 o'clock tonight, you will get myself and Jake Hari breaking down the 9-game main slate. Let's see. We've got on Yahoo, Kershaw 54, Strasburg 51, Sonny Gray 50, Robbie Ray 41, and our big expensive guys. Rank those guys because I think they're all viable.
What were the salaries again?
Kershaw 54, Strasburg 51, Gray 50, Ray 41.
Strasburg.
Okay. Let's see. I'm assuming Strasburg, Kershaw, probably scratch Gray, and then Robbie Ray not in the mix yet. So let's compare Robbie Ray at 41 to Lucchesi at 38 to Logan Webb at 31.
Whoever's the lowest owned. Like Ray is my highest projected pitcher out of that group, but his range of outcomes is really wide. So if his ownership were to get out of hand, then I would go to Lucchesi and then Webb. All
right. And then looks like Webb's going to hold his own at the bottom here quite nicely at 31. Nobody else really, I mean, Musgrove, but why would we do that when we have that? Dylan Bundy at 39 or Lucchesi at 38?
I think Lucchesi is safer. I think Bundy has the higher ceiling.
FanDuel, Kershaw 11.5, Strasburg 11.2, Gray 10.7.
Strasburg.
Strasburg 11.2 or Robbie Ray 9.1.
Depends on the bats. I would rather have Strasburg, but you're not sacrificing much in the way of ceiling. You're sacrificing a lot in the way of probability of having a good game.
All right. Robbie Ray 91, Keuchel 84, Lucchesi 78.
Ray, Lucchesi, Keuchel.
And then throw Logan Webb in there at 66. Does he top all of them?
Yeah, Webb's the best value pitcher on FanDuel.
Okay. And I should add, because you'll upgrade 3 hitters.
Right.
With that statement. But yes. All right. That should do it for us. We'll have to see if our producer's around or if he fell asleep. Let me hit him with a little note here. And then we'll get on out of here. Any overall thoughts for the slate here?
No.
You're supposed to vamp. I just want to make sure he's at his computer. So, okay, he is. So with that, gamers, reminder, we've got the show at 6 o'clock. We've got free content in front of the paywall. We've got free college football stuff in front of the paywall. That's going off all day today. You can check out Adam's deep dive. That's going to be behind the paywall out later this afternoon. You've got spotlight hitters and stacks in the spotlight pitchers article. Those are in front of the paywall. Check those out. If you just caught into us now, hit rewind, listen to the rest of the games here that you haven't to get your early slate action. That's going to start here in about 30 minutes. You can follow Adam over there on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. You'll recognize the logo. I'm sure it's going to be a sunny gray, making it rain picture here pretty soon in the backdrop. You can follow me at EMACDFS. And of course, it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.